Everyone's using ChatGPT and Claude for content creation, but there's a massive problem. It's slow, it's kind of tough to figure out how to get the content you want out of it, and it really doesn't sound like you. It sounds like AI, and everybody knows it's AI when you put it out there. But here's the thing, there's another tool that I'm using every single day, and my team is, that's completely changed the way that we're doing content. And unlike ChatGPT and Claude, this tool actually creates content in seconds that sounds like me and can sound like you. So I'm going to show you exactly our process. Nearly every day, we're putting out content for my podcast, Hustle and Flowchart. We have loads of podcast episodes, almost 700 of them. We have blog posts for every single one of these things, and it's all driven by this tool I'm about to show you. So this tool is straight up Delphi.ai. And I've talked about it before. I've used this tool for nearly 2 years. I was actually one of their first users. And it wasn't until recently I've cracked the code on how to make this thing create content at rapid speeds, like literally creating full campaigns. We're creating blog posts and everything using this tool. So this is like my standard profile for Delphi, where people interact with my podcast. So people can text, voice call, and video call with me. Now, I have some other videos on that. I won't talk about that here. You could check them out maybe in the description, or maybe I'll link them around somewhere around. But the idea is you could take this concept of a digital mind, and it's kind of like this idea, you have all this content online that you can put into your own digital mind. And this thing will essentially have loads of content built into it that people can interact with, or it can also have a bunch of different use cases. So in this case, we use it for content creation, but we're also using it for interaction with our listeners. I'm using it for lead gen. I'm using it for customer service. It's a course companion or consulting companion. It's also integrated into Zoom now. There's so many things you could do with it, but let's focus on just the content creation side. So, of course, you got ChatGPT, you got Claude, and they're both really good. You can create projects in Claude that kind of sound like you. You can write like me, is like what I have here, and then it does a decent job. But the problem is you can't upload enough information to really have it extract what you need. So like very specific things or quotes or, your writing style. You can kind of hack it, but it's not great. Same thing with ChatGPT and custom GPTs. You can kind of make them sound like you, and it does a decent job, but it's a lot of work. And again, you cannot upload enough content in here. So let me show you what I have in mind. This is the back end of my Delphi account, and you can see right here, there's almost 2 million words that are trained into the digital mind that I have. So this is behind what you're seeing right here. Now, if I go back over to this, you can see there's just loads of content. I mean, there's YouTube videos, there's blog posts, there's actually files. There's a ton of types of content you can upload into this thing. You can put in your website, you can put in your socials, you can put different files and sync to things like Google Drive and Dropbox. You have podcasts that you can pull in, even ones that you were a guest on. You can put in different snippets and actually add things individually. You can put notes in here and sync from Notion and Evernote. Messaging apps, you could sync from YouTube as well. There's so much you can do inside of this, but the point is, once you train your content into this digital mind, you then can kind of spin out all these different use cases. So let me show you what that looks like. They call it instances over here. And I'm going to build, you can see I already have one for content, but I'm going to create a new one that's specifically made for creating content. So you would click this. I'm just going to give it a name and say, write like Joe Fier. And then I can always select custom content. I'm just going to select everything in the digital mind and click continue. Now, the thing that kind of runs this whole thing is the purpose. So there's a purpose behind all of the different Delphis that you see. So my main account basically writes, this is the purpose, and it's kind of a general purpose. But what we could do is generate a new one and select an objective. Now you can see these are all different types or use cases. They're kind of like satisfying a use case. So you can see one that's just like, hey, be me, be my authentic self. or it could be an expert deep in your field, whatever that is, explaining complex topics. You can have a coach focused instance. You can have a search engine or like a knowledge base that people can just drag information out of. And that could be good for some things like a podcast or maybe like a full database or a big website full of information. You can have content creation, which is the one that we'll be using. You have internal type of use cases. So it's like if your team wants to get a bunch of internal information, processes, SOPs, workflows, then you can actually load those in and just share them with your organization. You could have customer support, of course, personalized support on all of your products and things that are going on. They can use it that way. Lead capture, lead gen, you can have it focused on that. Products and sales as well to focus on conversions, or you can make your own. Let's go over here and select content creation, and then we're going to scroll down here, create the instance. And as this is going on here, it's basically coming up with our specific purpose, and it's generating it based off of the content that I have, based on the style I speak. And you can see now it's created it. It has its own unique URL down here. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. So if we go to purpose and instructions, this is what it generated for us. And we can customize any of this. You can see we can actually build it out quite a bit. So it says it's a digital representation of me, designed to embody my unique voice, expertise, and authentic approach to entrepreneurship and marketing. Its role is to create content that captures my style and provides actionable insights and guidance for entrepreneurs seeking to grow their business. Now, you can see the purpose is to mirror my style. It breaks down complex business topics. It shares practical strategies, advice, maintains authenticity to the audience. When engaging, it's going to use my expression and my type of humor. It's going to bring in relevant moments from my podcast and experiences. It's going to stay within the bounds of what I speak about. It's not going to go out like ChatGPT or Claude might do and kind of try to fill in the gaps. This thing is trained on just my content and it's strictly adhering to it. Now, it's also going to respond with my level of enthusiasm and thoughtfulness and encourage people to basically keep growing and inspire them. Content creation approach, it's going to use the type of structure that I write in or speak in and like the patterns I use as well. It's going to focus on the topics that I engage in or I enjoy, the analogies and frameworks, and also just be consistent with how I think about things. Before we start creating the content, I want to show you one other thing that Delphi does really well, is that when I'm uploading content and when I'm putting in the purpose and kind of filling out my profile, and this is something my team and we're building a ton of these all the time because I work closely with Delphi, is it actually trains the specific speaking style that you have, which is pretty wild. And you could change this, but because I'm in an instance, it's kind of blanked out right now. But what you could see is it's actually analyzing the podcast, the YouTube videos, the blog posts, and things like that I put inside of here. And it's pulling out the different words I'm using and the structure of my language. It's pulling out the different ways that I use my enthusiasm and just different terms I might use. It's projecting confidence through direct statements about goals and achievements. It's talking about my story and rhetorical approach when it comes to different questions to the audience. And it's just really interesting. It's kind of doing this big like sentiment analysis of me way better than I could ever figure out. And I don't really know of another way that this is done. This is doing it all automatically, which kind of blows my mind. And this is why this thing speaks like you. All right, let's create some content and get into it. We're going to go view it live. And you can see we have the options. We're going to use the text option over here. And we are ready to rock and roll. So what I did is I came up with a hypothetical workshop. It's actually called AI Accelerator. That is something that I'm a part of with my partner, Mike Koenigs and Brad Costanzo. Let's just say we're doing a workshop about it. And I want to make a social media post about it. So I'm just going to copy this. I made these prompts inside of ChatGPT. I gave it enough information to basically give it context. So feel free to swipe any of these you're looking at, but I just recommend go to ChatGPT or any kind of, maybe even Claude if you wish, and give it some context and ideas of what you want to create. Give it a lot more specific details and let it form some decent prompts that you can ideally have in your own workbook and you could just swipe and deploy inside of Delphi or even in ChatGPT or Claude, however you want or whenever you want. You can give it to your team. That's what we do. So I'm just going to copy this. Let's make the social media post and test her out. So we're going to go here. We're going to paste it and let's see what happens. All right, so we have our first one. This is a social media post. You can see this was an Instagram post talking about the workshop. It's highlighting who it's for, and it's also going to pull a compelling quote from one of the guests that I had on my podcast. And I'm telling it to kind of select a different guest every single time, or an other, just to switch it up a little bit. And all right, so let's check it out. So we see the title, give some emojis as well. And it's talking about the workshop here. It is also giving a quote from my business partner, Mike Koenigs here, is saying that he is the author of this book, AI Accelerator, and a quote from a podcast I had with him. So what Delphi just did is it brought all the context of what we've been talking about, the way I speak, the purpose of this writing instance right here that you're looking at. And it's also pulling from information that I uploaded, in this case, from the Mike Koenigs episode I did with him, and a specific quote that he mentioned inside of my podcast without me doing any extra work. You saw it. So it basically gives a little call to action, then it's good to go. Let's go make an email to promote this workshop. So let's paste that in there and see what it does. Boom. All right. We have our email. So I asked it, or told it, to write an email announcing the workshop and a quote from a guest on the podcast, showing the importance of AI in business, and briefly describe the workshop. So you can see it started off with Mike Koenigs, which is a solid quote. And I think it's very relevant because he also wrote the book on that topic. And then it gets into some things about the workshop based off of, and again, I didn't give it much context on the workshop, but this is based on what it knows about what I talk about in terms of AI. But if we scroll down over here, call to action and everything, but then it references another podcast guest I've had, Roland Frazier, who has a quote from his episode. So now it's referencing two different episodes at the same time, smashing it all in together inside of this response. So now let's do one more. Let's do a blog post, and we'll take that and throw it into here. All right, so it just made a blog post for me that's a little longer, and I can definitely say shorten it up, extend it, however way you want to go about things. But you can see it's fleshing this thing out even further. It did reference Mike again, so if I wanted to switch up the speaker, I could just say, hey, give me a different speaker. And you can see it's going down, it's kind of building out this a little further. Roland's also mentioned again. Okay, so let's say, generate another with different guests as references. All right, so you kind of get the point. So what we can do is literally go down the list of different prompts. Like these were just social media posts, email, and blog posts. But if I wanted to make, social media carousels, LinkedIn posts, video scripts, different things like interactive polls or quizzes, a full email sequence. I mean, you could do so much. And of course, it's all with the prompts and what you want to actually generate. But again, the big thing is it's kind of this visual does it really well, is all of this content that you put into your Delphi platform in your account. It forms this digital mind like I showed you over here, and it literally is then creating this way that people can access, including yourself, to generate content. But now people can interact with it in so many ways, and it like formulates everything to their specific use case or whatever the purpose is that you want to share this with them. So it's really cool. It blows my mind. This thing saves so much time for my team and ultimately so much money, and it helps us generate a ton of content. So just wanted to share that. It's one of the tools I literally use every single day. My team uses it as well. I share it around with my clients. They're always blown away because it's a time saver and it's honestly not known enough. So I wanted to share it with you here. I'm going to keep making some other ones around Delphi, but also other tools that I have in my tool stack, because ultimately I'm making videos about different use cases that business owners like ourselves, creators, people who are just putting cool stuff out into the world, and different use cases and tools and workflows that you can swipe to ultimately save your time, save some money, scale what you're doing, scale you in a way that's never been done before. And AI is here. These smart tools are awesome. Start using them. Try it out for yourself. All right. See you next time.